Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to welcome back on the show our friend, the Attorney General of the great state of Minnesota, Keith Ellison. Before that, he served in Congress, elected in 2006. He was the first Muslim American ever elected to serve in the United States House of Representatives. AG Ellison, nice to see you. Well, Happy New Year.
Well, happy New Year to you, man, and to all of your listeners. Just want to wish them the very best and let them know that this is going to be an eventful year. But I think if we stick together and we stand up for our values, we'll be all right.
Well, that's important, and we must stand up, and we need Democrats who are going to be fighters and standing up. And I saw you already put out statements to that effect, and that's important. Let me get your take as an attorney and also somebody as a prosecutor and a former defense attorney and member of Congress before this.
Yep.
Today's a 4-year anniversary of January 6th. The only reason January 6th happened is because of Donald Trump. The January 6th committee wrote in writing the central cause of January 6th was one man, Donald Trump. Yet he faced zero accountability for an attack that we saw play out in real time right in front of us. How did the system fail this badly?
The system depends upon people of at least moderate moral integrity. It doesn't depend upon people of extreme moral integrity, but it does depend upon people having some core basic values and some respect for the truth. And I don't know, he got into our collective amygdala, not mine and yours, but our fellow countrymen and women. And he was able to convince them that there were other things more important than honesty, truth, decency, respect for law, respect for decency. And there were other things that just took precedent over those core values and was able to do it. Now, the latest is that he's gonna pardon them all on day one.
Yep.
So what he's really, quite honestly, I don't know if he's sowing the seeds of destruction because we don't have to let him succeed, but he's trying to sow the seeds of American destruction. Because once you say, I can try to violently overthrow an election and I might have to spend a few months in prison, but my man's going to get me out, then why not do it again? Why? There's no social stigma. You can wrap yourself in the flag and you're not going to pay a serious consequence. And some of those people are truly scary, dangerous individuals. Now, what if they go kill somebody? Are they going to get pardons again? Well, why wouldn't they?
They do it for Trump, you mean? Right.
Yeah. Look, these people are, some of them are very scary people. And they could say like, hey, look, Ashley Babbitt was killed. We want revenge. And then they say, Trump, I took out one of them lefties because, I did it for you. I did it for Ashley. I don't want to put negativity into the air, but it's already in the air, isn't it? My point is, what Trump is doing is extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. We already have too much of people thinking that the way to solve a social problem is with a weapon or violence. We already have too much of that. And I caution people, don't confuse the method with the issue, because the method leads to, eye for an eye. It leads down a path that nobody really wants to go down.
I hear what you're saying. And Donald Trump vowing to pardon these terrorists, I've got to be honest, I just wrote an article because he has followed the fascist playbook, specifically Hitler's playbook after his 1923 beer hall putsch, where he celebrated the people who were killed. He didn't celebrate the cops. They celebrated him. And Hitler comes to power, and one of the first things he does is establish a day of remembrance for the 14 Nazis who were killed. Not for the 4 cops who were killed, but Nazis. I would not be surprised in a year from now we are dealing with a national day of remembrance for those people who were wrongly prosecuted, or Ashley Babbitt who died, who was killed, that kind of stuff. And people might think that's outrageous. It's not, because fascists are not original. They copy each other. The
Oh,
idea, the
absolutely.
banality of evil, like, it's the same old stuff over and over. It's unoriginal. It's always the same. We could have that. This is where we are as a nation. It's deeply concerning.
It is deeply concerning. Just remind people, because people might forget, you know, there was the guy wielding a tomahawk.
Hmm.
Shane Jenkins escalated
Yep.
the violence at the riot by smashing a window, allowing rioters to arm themselves with table legs, chairs, drawers. There's a lot of them, and these people are truly bad folks. He anticipated a war popping off. He wanted to be in a war, right?
Hmm.
Which means death and killing and starvation and true harm to the world. And I mean, Trump clearly doesn't care about American democracy. He doesn't
No.
care about
No.
anything other than himself. And there've always been people like Trump. What continues to confound me, and I'll admit that it does, is that anyone would support him.
Hmm.
That does blow my mind. That anybody, they're like, okay, now sexual assault, that's okay if Trump does it. Um, Cheating on your taxes and evaluations of your properties, making it lower when you want lower taxes, making it higher when you want to borrow money. That's okay to do. Not complying with government making you hand over documents, that's okay to do. And by the way, I'm not just talking about the right wing. I'm also talking about people on the political left of center who are kind of like, well, that's not a big enough deal for me to try to stop him. I don't know if you know what I'm saying, but the folks who are like, yeah, I would never vote for Trump, but I'm not going to lift a finger to stop him from getting in office because I got some other things I'm mad about with Dems.
Hmm.
I'm like, do you really, 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 have you thought about the implications of what you're unleashing here? Um,
Look, I think I hear what you're saying. I'm talking with AG Keith Ellison. That, look, I think the next few years are going to be darker than many people want to imagine.
yeah,
I think, and it's not just Trump; it's the people he's surrounding. Cash Patel,
Cash
Pete
Patel.
Hegseth, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, who's openly vile, anti-Muslim bigot, be the head of our military, who's a Christian nationalist, who wants essentially a religious war. It seems like, and he'll do anything Trump says. Trump says send the military to shut down an election. He'll do it. Get rid of immigrants. He'll do that. Whatever. This is what is people
Oh,
don't. The level of loyalty here is un.
well,
It's unlike we've seen it.
you put your finger exactly on the correct point, because here's the thing. Here's the thing. We confuse the fascist playbook with incompetence. In fact, the fascist playbook, part of it is incompetence, because I'm going to select the incompetent one because that one knows they got no future outside of me, right?
Right.
So Matt Gaetz knows his only chance of holding any position of honor in our society is through his allegiance and his loyalty. Same with Pete Hegseth, same with Cash Patel, same with the wrestler lady who wants to destroy
It's like,
education. Same with, I mean, you keep on going down. I mean, same with Blake Masters, who says, yeah, America has a gun problem. It's actually black people, frankly.
right.
He said that quote. So he's a racist who is going to who's not going to have any. Who's they're proposing him for the ATF. I
I didn't
mean,
even know that. Oh my God.
yeah, yeah,
It's
and
all
and
losers. It's all losers because they
it's
have no
all,
future without him.
yeah. And by the way, Blake Masters is a loser. He ran, he lost, and I mean, and it's all like weirdos. I mean, quite. I mean, to be very candid, I mean, I served with Tulsi.
Tulsi Gabbard, yeah.
Tulsi is an odd person. I'm not joking. I'm not even kidding. No, I'm
I know
not
what you
saying
said.
she. I mean, I got along with her. I got along with her, but she's into being contrarian for the sake of it. For the sake of it. for the just because everybody's doing this, I'm gonna do that. Well, maybe everybody's saying 2 + 2 is 4 because it is 4. She's like, it's 5. Nope, it's 3. That's her.
Wow.
She's like that. Oh yeah. And I mean, and now I know she was an Assad supporter. I
Mhm.
mean, weird stuff. I mean, and there's just down the line. Um, all these folks who are, and I mean, I don't have to go into to 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 Junior. I mean, I don't even like calling him RFK at all because I
Right.
admired RFK, but so
Me
I
too.
just say Junior. I mean, he's a strange, weird dude. I mean, and clearly the most important thing for him is attention.
Yeah.
That is the, if you say, oh, is it truth? Is it justice? Even health. All of that is to the side. It is about drawing personal attention. A man with a checkered past, to be certain, who would never be. Can you possibly imagine Junior getting into a Democratic administration or a Republican one that had standards? you know
No, of course not.
no, 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 no. So it is this odd duck weirdo thing that makes them ideal candidates for a fascist dictator because their loyalty is exclusive. And you know
That's
um
it.
yeah.
So one big thing that keeps coming up on the show now is that before the election, we heard many leading Democrats say Donald Trump is a true threat to our democracy and our freedoms. He was even called a fascist by Vice President Harris. Joe
Yeah.
Biden had speeches where he said existential threat to our freedoms and democracy.
Right.
Since he won, we don't hear any of that language. And we're all wondering why not? Was he that threat? Or, and I believe he was, or were they hyping it before the election? Because they should still be saying the same things now instead of things like, let's find common ground. Maybe we could work together on certain issues. He's either a fascist or he's not a fascist.
Well,
I'm
I do have an answer for you.
Go ahead.
It's like, yeah, we think he's a fascist, and now that he has power, we're scared. And so we're trying to keep our head down so we don't attract the negative attention of the fascists. It's basically, I mean, I have been in so many CYA conversations, Dean. I've stopped counting people who said, I'm going to keep my head down and hope I don't get any attention by the bad guy. So it's really fear. That's what you're saying. Nobody's speaking up too loud, or not. I don't say nobody, but many of the louder voices are now quiet because they fear that he's going to keep his promise of being retribution. And what did he call himself? I am your retribution. I am your
I yeah,
retaliation.
I'm your retribution, right? But
Right,
he's not yours; he's his.
right, right. But like this idea that he was going to embody payback, right, against, I don't know, Christopher Wray, against Adam Schiff, against
Liz Cheney,
Liz
Jamie Raskin,
Cheney, against
Adam
Jamie. Yeah,
Schiff. He's really upset with Adam Schiff.
yeah. He's gonna get you because you said the law is this. Your behavior violated it. We will hold you accountable. Anybody who held him accountable according to law, he wants to give. Think about that. I mean, can anyone say that Tish James did anything other than uphold the law? Well, under Trump, he's the law. You don't hold Trump accountable to no law. Law is way below him. And I'm telling you, we're all going to be a little tested in the next period. We're all going to get tested a little bit because this idea that you're going to lay low and be quiet, it's just not going to work. By time, and so you lay low and be quiet, and then when he gets around to you, then who, right? And so the best thing to do now is object from the beginning. Object from the beginning. You know, uh, you know, uh, that is what needs to be done. So, right now I'm personally concerned about cases that we have holding certain big tech folks accountable. Some of these cases the government is a part of. I'm
Hmm.
hoping that the government does not abandon these cases. These are good cases. Cases to lower grocery prices, cases to
Right.
lower rent prices, cases where the Biden administration is a party to hold these big companies accountable. Will these cases continue to move forward? Particularly when you look at the $1 million Meta's putting up for his inauguration, a million from this big shot, that big shot. I mean, there is a form of government called plutocracy, and that's the rulership of the oligarch rich. And we've entered into a new phase, and it's happened on the heels of a fake populist, you know, which Trump 100% is a fake populist. I mean, it's really sad,
So
you
how do
know.
we unite people? I'm chatting with Attorney General Keith Ellison. Look, I agree with you 100%. This is a plutocracy. People can Google it to see the exact definition, but it's essentially the wealthy sitting around a room setting up policies. And that's what they're doing. They're going to do that
Right.
in the future. How do we unite? Look, on the right, I disagree with them on 99% of things, but the one thing polling shows is the left and the right want big money out of politics because we know it dilutes our voice. We
Yep.
know Elon Musk might be on the right today, but he was on the left yesterday, and tomorrow he might be back on the left because it's only about Elon Musk. It's not about a philosophy. How do we take can the states do? Forget federal government. Can you guys do anything in Minnesota to
Yeah,
address big money politics?
we can. We can. But let me just tell you, I mean, we do it in many ways. When big money, I mean, taking on the antitrust,
Right.
taking on the big trust. This is something we've really gone in big with our team to try to make sure that we are doing a lot on market manipulation, domination. And we're fighting on that front. We've increased our staff, but like I said, some of those cases we have an ally in the Biden administration,
Right.
and some of those cases we may or may not have uh, any help from the federal government in those cases. So we're worried about case situation where they'll drop out of the case on our side and show up either not at all or on the other side, And so here's a few things to remind people. It was state AGs that defended the Affordable Care Act because the Trump administration, DOJ, would not do it. It was state AGs that did pattern and practice litigation regarding some illegal activity in some police departments because the DOJ under Trump refused to do it. And on a range of things, on and on and on and on. I could just keep naming all the cases where the federal government was no ally, no friend, no partner, and in some cases operating against us. The federal government tried to manipulate the mail. We had to sue to stop them from doing illegal things to restrict people from using the mails, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just a range of things. So, there's a lot of things that we're anticipating. I mean, Trump's talking about day one stuff. I anticipate he will do a lot of pardons. Our legal authority to stop what are essentially illegal pardons is limited,
Hmm.
right? We limited to say the least, right? I mean,
Yeah.
to be quite honest with you, there may not be anything we can do about it. I mean,
That's a tough one. No, it's
just
really,
so your listeners know,
yeah.
the pardon power of the president is pretty broad, you know. Um, there is the 10th Amendment, which says that the powers specifically designated to the federal government are their powers. Everything else is our powers. And so when they start trying to use federal power to make us change our state policy, we do have some ways to fight back with that.
That's good.
There's the posse comitatus law, which says that the federal government shouldn't use troops against American citizens. There also is the Insurrection Act, which says that they kind of can, but there are restrictions on that too. And but there's not, but the time and place that the Insurrection Act was passed was very, very different. And so now it's interesting. We may be having to use some Clarence Thomas style analysis, which is the historical use of the Insurrection Act is completely different from what's in there today because the statute doesn't have a lot of limitations written into it,
Right.
but it does have a historic context that is around it, which says that this is in cases of invasion or public disorder like riots, right? So you can't just to use the Insurrection Act to federalize the state National Guard of Minnesota to say go into that plant and tear out everybody who looks like they're not a U.S. citizen. That would be an illegal use of the Insurrection Act, but the statute is a little vague. So we're going to have to go in there and actually get a court to say, no, the statute means X, the
Right.
statute means Y. This will be a
And,
case. Yeah.
Absolutely, and you're going to have to be creative as the AGs to get the Democrats. Last thing, in the last couple of minutes, I want to touch on the race for Democratic National Committee chair
Sure.
because Ken Martin from Minnesota, your state, is running, and it looks like from the articles, it's Ken Martin versus Ben Wickler, the Wisconsin State Democratic chair, as the two front runners. I don't have any insight. That's all I'm reading, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But you support Ken Martin.
Right.
You ran yourself for DNC chair years ago. I
Sure
remember
did.
that.
Sure
So
did.
what do you? Most people don't know Ken Martin. Ben Wickler's been on the show numerous times as Democratic chair of Wisconsin. What can you tell us about Ken Martin? I'm not taking any
No,
in the
no, it's
race. I just
okay.
want to hear about everybody. That's all.
Here's the thing about Ken Martin. Ken Martin has been the chair of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota since I'd say around 2010. We have controlled every single statewide office since then. There
Wow.
are no Republican senators, no Republican governors, no Republican AGs, no Republican state secretaries of state, nothing. What does Ken do? Well, what Ken does is he is extremely relational. So he gets to know you. He works with you. He listens. He is a person who believes that we should campaign year around. So the reason that we win isn't
Mm.
because of good luck and charm. It's because when the Republican 30-second ad starts saying that you're anything but the child of God, uh, people already have been immunized that that is a lie, right? People already, because they know you,
Right.
because I've spent time in Moorhead, Minnesota, spent time in Rochester, spent time in Duluth, spent time in Wilmer, Minnesota. People are like, yeah, I saw you ran ads saying that Keith Ellison is a friend of criminals. That's stupid. We know
Hmm.
Keith. And Ken helps to sort of orchestrate all of that, right? Ken is not going to be he's not going to use the DNC to make himself into a celebrity. He is a under the hood kind of leader, very roll up your sleeves kind of guy, engaging, well spoken, gives a
Hmm.
hell of a speech, but is really a guy who and I'll tell you this, he knows where the bodies are buried. All of and he's a state party chair in Minnesota. He is the chair of the state party chairs right now,
Oh,
which means that the state he's Ben Wickler's chair.
right.
He's the chair of every state party chair. They all collectively believe he is the best voice for them. So
Hmm.
like the problem with getting somebody who's sort of a celebrity, and again, I know Ben Wickler. I like Ben Wickler. I think he's a good person. And I don't think Ben is a celebrity, by the way.
Right.
But to get somebody who is in fact kind of a celebrity, like somebody like Rom, and again, I'm not trying to spit on Rom. Rom's cool. I got no beef with Rom. But Rom does have sort of a profile. You know what I mean? To get a problem with getting a guy like that is, do they know the intricacies of the system enough to change them? Because as you know, bureaucracy fights back. Everybody
Right.
who's if you just take somebody and plop them on top of a bureaucracy, the bureaucracy will change them before they change it. And so, but Ken knows how it works, right? And so my reason I'm supporting Ken is that Ken is, by the way, I would not be in politics but for Ken Martin. I'll tell you a
Wow.
quickie story, very quick story. So
Hmm.
I used to be a state legislator,
Hmm.
and as a state legislator of Minnesota, you spend half your time being in doing your day job, and the other half you're in state legislature. So I'm an ordinary, regular old state legislator doing what I do. Ken recognized, or in his view, that I had some a leadership ability that he saw in me. When Martin Sabo retires, and he was my predecessor in Congress, Ken calls me at about 11 a.m. in the morning. I'm in my law office, and he says, "Keith, are you ready? Ready for what? Are you ready to run for Congress?" I said, "Ain't Sabo Sabo's retiring? Yeah, man. And you need to step up and run. You would be great. You
Wow.
need to do this. And so I did run. I declared by that Monday. I didn't think I was going to win, but Ken thought I was going to win, and I did win.
Yeah.
And so and Ken knew very well that I was Muslim. He knew very well that I was black. He knew neither person of either demographic had ever been in the federal delegation.
Wow.
When I ran for AG's office, same thing, nothing but support all the way. And so, and here's another Ken story. So we had a trifecta in our state legislative system now. Ken gets a lot of credit for that. Not all the credit, but he gets a lot of credit for that. But we had one before. And this is when Ken just got into his chairmanship. And that trifecta was faced with the state of Minnesota under Republican leadership said that if you could only have a license to drive a car if you were a citizen or if you were a legal permanent resident. And so this is a problem because anybody driving a car ought to be insured and ought to pass a test that they can drive.
Right.
And just because you don't have a license to drive, don't mean you're not going to drive. It means that you're going to hope people don't catch you. So we don't, in the first trifecta, we don't do anything about it because conservative Democrats are like, we don't know, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of the Latino groups were going to protest the annual Democratic Party gala. Ken, as opposed to saying, oh, lock them out, blah, blah, Ken says, give them the microphone. Give them the microphone. And a wonderful speaker, wonderful dear friend of mine named Amelia, you're born and raised in Mexico, fighting for immigration rights, takes the microphone and gives a compelling speech, all because Ken heard the voices of the people. And he said, I'd rather have you inside telling us what's the what,
right,
rather than outside yelling at us about how insensitive we are. And that kind of thinking, boy, does the Democratic Party ever need that. Now, maybe other people who are, but so there's a few things about Ken that cannot be said about anyone else, including Ben. And again, Ben's a friend of mine. We won Minnesota for Kamala Harris. Wisconsin didn't win. 2, we haven't had a statewide Republican in a long time. He's got plenty of them. 3, Ken has pulled together in a selfless way an operation that yields results and replicates them. Ben is working on that. He really is. He really, really, really is. He's making a lot of progress, but he hasn't achieved the progress that Ken has made. So I see a very important role for Ben at a national level. I don't know if it's chair. If he is chair, I'll be an enthusiastic supporter of his.
Sure.
I like him. He's a good man.
Well, I appreciate you sharing with Ken Martin because not a lot of us know him, and we'd love to get him on the show to talk about it in the future. But AG Ellison, it's great to see you, my friend. Happy New Year, and keep up the good fight. We're gonna be tested. You're absolutely right. And
all right,
we're gonna step up. Take care.
Man,
Salams, brother.
Salams. Keep that microphone hot, brother.
I'm gonna try.